Hello and a very warm welcome to a brand new edition of World Panorama with me, Frank Pereira, on Rajya Sabha television. Over the next half an hour, we'll bring you a roundup of all the significant events to have happened around the world this week. But first, a look at the headlines. Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff's Workers' Party backs her after lower house votes in favor of impeaching her. Rousseff accuses opponents of mounting a coup, vows to fight till the end. Sweet homecoming for Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. Frontrunners in the US presidential race secure comfortable victories in the crucial New York primary election. Both leaders move significantly closer to their party's nominations. US President uses flattery poetry and a blatant threat to urge British voters to remain in the European Union. Barack Obama warns Britain not to bank on a free trade deal with Washington if it quits the EU. And the world mourns the sudden death of the 57-year-old superstar Prince. Tributes pour in after news that the singer's body was found in a lift at his home in Minnesota. Police open investigation into the death. Well, Brazil took a major step toward the impeachment of President Dilma Rousseff on Sunday when the lower house of Congress voted to send her case to the Senate. The upper house is almost certainly expected to refer her for a trial. It now looks likely that the president will be removed from office and replaced by the vice president. Rousseff's supporters are furious, her opponents are overjoyed, and Brazil's corrupt politicians are breathing a sigh of relief. Here's more. Supporters of Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff have vowed to continue their fight to stop her impeachment, while opposition senators have said that they intend to speed up the process for the country's future. The country's Chamber of Deputies voted on Sunday to endorse the impeachment of Rousseff, passing the matter to the Senate. Should the Senate decide within 24 days to begin an impeachment trial, Rousseff will have to step aside for 180 days for it to proceed. Vice President Temer will then take over as interim president. Members of the landless workers' movement who camped out in the capital Brasilia to protest the impeachment said it was a coup, calling the move a temporary defeat.
Our feeling is that after Sunday's result, we have to keep up our fight because what the lower chamber did, approving the impeachment, was a coup.
Rousseff stands accused of manipulating the country's budget during her re-election campaign to make the economy look stronger, a charge she vehemently denies.
I think that Brazil has an immense capacity for recuperation and recapitulation of its strength. I believe in this, and I want to tell you that I will fight for this, and this is one of the reasons why I am calmly resisting, because I believe that we have a very solid base which allows us to be one of the great global players.
Those in the opposition claim that they want to send a message about good governance, but the real reason the president is being impeached is that the Brazilian political system is in ruins. Her impeachment will provide a convenient distraction while other politicians try to get their own houses in order.
As senators, we have to respect due process and the Supreme Court's decisions. But we also have the duty to expedite the impeachment process as much as possible so we can turn this page and create conditions for the country's economy to grow again.
An enormous corruption investigation known as Operation Lava Jato or Operation Car Wash has exploded in the political system's face. At first, when the investigation began in 2014, investigators accused members of Rousseff's left-wing Workers' Party of using Petrobras, the state-run oil company, to trade kickbacks for political favors. There is more and more evidence that this kind of practice was common among Brazilian political parties. The investigation has expanded to include a host of figures across the political spectrum, including roughly 50 politicians and a handful of business leaders. The frontrunner to take Rousseff's job if proceedings against her begin, Vice President Michel Temer, too has several corruption allegations leveled against him. He, however, has denied the allegations and has decided to remain silent till the Senate comes to a decision.
I want to say that I'll quietly and respectfully await the Senate's decision. It is the Senate which has the last word on this issue, so it would be inappropriate for me to say anything before the Senate has signed its solution.
An unanswered question many analysts are now asking is whether Rousseff's impeachment will stabilize the government or destabilize it even more. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha Television.
Well, joining me for a chat now to talk about Brazil's constitutional crisis is Pinak Ranjan Chakravarty, former Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs. Thank you so much, Ambassador, for being with me on the program. Let's try and analyze the situation in Brazil now. What really brought Brazil to where it stands today? I mean, the political crisis is incredible, and what's even more, funny, or what's even more incredible is the fact that there are over 150 MPs who have serious corruption allegations against them. The person who's supposed to take over from Dilma Rousseff also has, similar kind of corruption allegations leveled against him.
The funny thing is that in today's Brazil, there is no politician who's not tainted. That's the funny thing. Although Dilma Rousseff herself is not accused of any personal corruption.
Yes.
So in that sense, there's no personal corruption charges against her. But you asked what has happened? Why has it come to this pass? I think there is a series of events that have taken place. Under the Workers' Party and the leadership of Dilma Rousseff, Brazil, in the first term when she was the president, Brazil actually was doing very well and had moved somewhat to the left of center than the earlier sort of government. Because the Workers' Party was a people's party based on the workers sort of thing. And Brazil had done very well. I think by 2010, Brazil had exceeded India's GDP and gone ahead. But today, that is not the case. Since then, I think because of various international factors, Brazil is a great commodity exporter. The slowdown in the world economy and in China particularly led to slowdown in exports. And finally, the economy started shrinking. And today, it is still shrinking. So that led to a lot of job losses, led to a lot of unemployment. Also, I think the business interests, the large business interests, who were a little were unhappy with the welfare-oriented policies of the workers' government. I think they felt that a return to the market-oriented policies would be better. I suspect very strongly that the business community is also playing a major role in this political crisis. Apart from the fact that she has said that there is a virtual coup, etc., which basically is saying that her own people who were allied with her have basically betrayed her.
Yes.
And there is one other point on which I would like to perhaps end, is that Brazil has the longest constitution in the world. Very, very long, elaborate constitution. And I think this is also a result of a certain amount of judicial activism. Now, the judiciary, in an attempt to portray itself as very, very independent, has taken a lot of decisions which has led to this. For example, the impeachment actually flowed out from an audit party, an audit court, basically.
Yes.
Which decided that she had fudged something in the national budget and therefore it was a fit case for impeachment. And that snowballed into this impeachment process in the House of Congress, the lower House of Congress. So that is where it is now, and it seems that she will be impeached, I think.
That's what it looks like as things stand right now.
The Senate might just go along with it.
Yes.
But anyway, one doesn't know as yet.
No, if that happens, what Dilma Rousseff and her party have said is that they're going to take the fight to the streets. And if it goes to the streets, is that their only option, or what do you think that the strategy really of Dilma Rousseff is going to be going forward?
I think she's in a fighting mood because she feels that she has been wronged. And I think there is a judicial route as well, an appeal to the Supreme Court to stay the impeachment proceedings. But I'm not sure whether that will work or whether the judiciary itself is in any mood to do so. So it seems as of now that she is heading for trouble.
Indeed.
And she will be impeached. And the Vice President is waiting in the wings to take over.
Yes.
And probably will be fortunate enough.
He's been the kingmaker for quite a few years now, so he's just waiting to get.
But there is another aspect, that there is another case pending which actually might overturn the whole election when she came back to power for the second time.
2014.
Which means that there will be fresh elections. And then the vice president, I think, unfortunately, will not have a very long time in office.
You know, we're running out of time because we have to move on to other stories as well. But one quick word before you go, Ambassador, is that, what's going to happen to Brazil's foreign diplomacy now?
Well, I think their biggest problem is the coming Olympics in Rio. But I think that they will manage because there is a strong bureaucracy and the infrastructure actually is ahead of time. So I think that it'll go through. Whoever is the president or acting president will obviously preside over it. What it means for the economy, one doesn't know because of the global recession, whether more right-leaning economic policies are going to help or it will create more domestic discontent. But as of now, it seems that the Workers' Party are not going to take it lying down. So they will take to the streets, there will be trouble. And basically, Brazil will be looking inside rather than outside. Indeed. And as you know, that will mean that their diplomatic and other efforts will slow down. Slow down,
for at least for the time being. But thank you so much, Ambassador, for being with us on the program and putting things into perspective for us. Let's now shift focus and move on to some other news. President Barack Obama faced a furious backlash on his visit to the United Kingdom on Friday. British lawmakers accused him of hypocrisy for intervening in Britain's national referendum on the European Union. Obama was accused of an incoherent and perverse intervention in the country's acrimonious debate after urging British voters to remain in the political bloc. Here's more.
An impassioned appeal from no less than the United States President asking Britain to remain in the European Union. In an article in the Daily Telegraph, President Barack Obama said the membership magnified Britain's place in the world and made the bloc stronger and more outward-looking. But opponents of Britain's EU membership were not impressed. They included London Mayor Boris Johnson, who heads the Out campaign.
I do think it's perverse that we're being urged by the United States to embroil ourselves ever more deeply in a system where our laws, 60% of them are now emanating from the EU, when the United States would not dream of subjugating itself in any way to any other international jurisdiction.
Applauding Britain's EU membership, Obama said it had helped make the world freer, richer, and better able to tackle everything from migration to terrorism.
It's something to which the Americans would never submit their own democracy. America's a proud democracy built on principles of liberty, the idea of the sanctity of representation and no taxation without representation. It is very odd, it is perverse, it is hypocritical.
In fact, Obama's trip to London was an expression of the concern that a British exit could weaken the West. The US President also invoked the interlinked history of the two nations as his reason for speaking as a friend on the June 23rd referendum. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, it's time for a short break now, but we'll be back with much more from around the world. Stay tuned, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, billionaire Donald Trump and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton won sweeping victories in the New York primary on Tuesday, galvanizing their bids to win the Republican and Democratic nominations for the White House. It was the most decisive New York primary in decades and leaves cell-style Democratic socialist Bernie Sanders with a tough decision on how to proceed as Clinton extends her overwhelming lead in the Democratic race. Here's a report.
Runners Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump scored big wins in New York State's U.S. presidential nomination contest. Trump's win moves him closer to capturing the 1,237 delegates needed to win the Republican nomination outright, avoiding a contested convention in July. In his victory speech, Trump said he thought the race for the Republican nomination was all but over.
We don't have much of a race anymore based on what I'm seeing on television. Senator Cruz is just about mathematically eliminated.
The Queens-born businessman put weeks of negative headlines, from staff changes to delegate losses to abortion flip-flops behind him, by crushing Ted Cruz and John Casey in his home state. Exit polls also show that New York Republicans believe Trump is the candidate with the best chance to defeat Clinton in the fall.
We've won another state. As you know, we have won millions of more votes than Senator Cruz, millions and millions of more votes than Governor Kasich. We've won, and now, especially after tonight, close to 300 delegates more than Senator Cruz.
Trump's win marked a rebound from his Wisconsin defeat 2 weeks ago. It set him up for another big night on the 26th of April, when Pennsylvania, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Delaware and Maryland will hold their primaries. But Trump's path to the nomination is far from clear. That's because he remains unpopular with the Republican Party leaders and activists who serve as delegates at the summer nominating convention. His Republican opponent, Ted Cruz, made a passing reference about home state's political supremacy while campaigning in Philadelphia.
Outsider, Bernie Sanders is an outsider. Both with the same diagnosis, but both with very different paths to healing. Millions of Americans have chosen one of these outsiders.
Meanwhile, Clinton, who once represented New York in the US Senate, managed to blunt the momentum of rival Bernie Sanders and took a big step toward wrapping up the Democratic nomination. Her victory speech focused on looking to the future.
We started this race not far from here on Roosevelt Island. And tonight, little less than a year later, the race for the Democratic nomination is in the home stretch and victory is in sight.
Clinton, the Democratic frontrunner, was widely expected to win in her adopted home state of New York, where she was twice elected senator. And she won big by 15 points. Of all the contests so far, Clinton said this one was personal.
You know, in this campaign, we've won in every region of the country. From the north to the south, to the east, to the west, but this one's personal.
For Democratic rival Bernie Sanders, the outlook is bleak. Clinton's victory expands the number of pledged delegates, making it nearly impossible for him to catch up. But Sanders is far from ready to concede.
I don't want you to tell anybody this. So keep it. But Secretary Clinton is getting a little bit nervous.
The voting in New York was also marred by claims of irregularities, with the state's attorney general reporting hundreds of complaints logged on a statewide voter hotline, as well as reports of thousands of people being scrubbed from voter rolls. New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer ordered an audit of the city elections board after it confirmed the names had been removed from voter rolls. He told the board in a letter it was consistently disorganized, chaotic and inefficient.
There's nothing more sacred to our political process. And that is why, after hearing about widespread reports of voters having trouble actually casting their ballot, I have decided to audit the management and operations of the New York City Board of Elections.
The victories for Trump in the Republican race and Clinton for the Democrats in one of the biggest state nominating contests blunts the momentum for their challengers as the two look ahead to contest in the northeastern states on Tuesday. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Pop icon, Prince, singer, songwriter, arranger and multi-instrumentalist is no more. He was found unresponsive in an elevator at his home-cum recording studio in Minnesota. Fans and the music world are struggling to come to terms with the sudden death of the superstar.
The music world stunned by the shock news of the sudden death of Prince. The 57-year-old music icon was found unresponsive on Thursday at his Minnesota home and later declared dead.
Got to not talk dirty, baby.
His death cut short a prolific music career that started with a teenager somehow talking his way into a record contract with Warner. Unprecedentedly, the unknown boy was given total control. The pop superstar, whose real name was Prince Rogers Nelson, was a prolific singer, songwriter and multi-instrumentalist. He sold over 100 million albums in a career that spanned over 3 decades. His music integrated a wide variety of styles, including funk, rock, R&B, soul, psychedelia and pop. Kiss was just one of the several planetary hits in the 80s and 90s that established him as an artist everyone wanted to hear. He produced movies, generously supported other artists with songs, and had such a work rate that there are probably hundreds of hours of material waiting to be released. Painfully shy, Prince was a beast on the stage. As a mixed-race Latino African American with white blood, he was never going to fit in anywhere, and so had to be larger than life. His unashamed sexuality added to the image of a dangerous, out-of-control man that at first shocked and repelled before an adoring public embraced it. Fans have been struggling to come to terms with news of his sudden death.
He's a voice of this world and this state. I don't know what we're going to do without him.
It felt like the place you had to go, you know, hear something like that, and where else are you going to go but home? This is home.
Tributes poured in also from the music world. President Obama said, "The world lost a creative icon." Cities across the US held tributes and vigils and lit buildings, bridges and other venues in purple light. The US space agency NASA tweeted a picture of a purple nebula in honor of Prince. Prince once said of himself, "As I go into this journey called life, I rarely look back." Tonight, or many nights to come, we certainly will.
Count it. Well, let's now shift gears and bring you up to speed with all the sports news you might have missed this week in Sports Action.
The world's top tennis players scooped the Laureus Sportsman and Sportswoman Awards for 2016 on Monday, with Novak Djokovic of Serbia winning for the second year running and USA's Serena Williams receiving her award at a ceremony in Berlin on Monday. Both athletes picked up the top prize for the third time, with Williams having previously won it in 2003 and 2010, while Djokovic won in 2012 and last year. The Dutch footballer and coach Johan Cruyff, who died of cancer in March, was posthumously awarded a Spirit of Sport award. Spain's triple world champion Jorge Lorenzo will leave Yamaha for Ducati after the 2016 MotoGP season in a move that marks the end of a fractious pairing with Italian great Valentino Rossi. Yamaha, who extended Rossi's deal to 2018 in March, said in a statement they would announce a replacement for Lorenzo in due course. Ducati confirmed separately that the 28-year-old reigning champion was joining the Italian manufacturer on a 2-year deal. There are 15 races remaining this year, with a home race for Lorenzo next up this weekend. Ethiopia had a banner day at the Boston Marathon on Monday as Lemmy Berhanu Haile and Atsidi Baisa won the men's and women's titles. Ethiopian runner Lemmy Berhanu Haile won the men's title in a late surge against defending champion and fellow Ethiopian Lelisa Disisa in 2 hours, 12 minutes and 45 seconds. On the women's side, Baesa won in 2 hours, 29 minutes and 19 seconds. It was a third running of the world's oldest continually run annual marathon since a pair of ethnic Chechen brothers killed 3 people and injured more than 260 with a pair of homemade pressure cooker bombs placed at the finish line in 2013. British boxer Nick Blackwell has announced his retirement from boxing, tweeting, "That's me done," but suggesting he will stay involved in the sport as his recovery continues from the serious injuries sustained against Chris Eubank Jr. in their British middleweight title fight in Wembley last month. The former British middleweight champion also said he held no grudge against Eubank Jr., who won the fight by way of knockout in the 10th round. Blackwell was placed in an induced coma after suffering a bleed on his skull. The International Hockey Federation has announced a new annual Global Home and Away League to be launched in 2019, involving the world's leading hockey nations, which will replace Hockey World League semi-finals and finals and the Champions Trophy. FIH also decided the Champions Trophy, held once in 2 years since 1978, will be scrapped, and the 2018 edition in Amsterdam will be the last tournament. FIH President Leandro Negre said the changes were made with an aim of making hockey a global game.
And finally, the Olympic torch for the Rio Olympic Games was lit at an ancient Greek site on Thursday. Various runners will now take the torch on an international relay that will end at the opening ceremony in Rio de Janeiro on August 5th. It's an 80-year-old ritual based on a ceremony in ancient Olympia. I'm going to leave you today with visuals of the lighting of the Olympic torch. See you again next time.